Yo, what is good, everyone? This is Tarod Rashawn, and you are listening to the TARODCAST podcast. To all of our new listeners listening in for the first time, welcome. For all of our returning listeners, welcome back. We've got a wonderful show prepared for you guys today. And this is actually a show that, for me, is very close and near and dear to my own heart. But before we get into that, as you already know, at TARODCAST, you can take everything we say with a grain of salt. We simply just want to add some flavor to your meal. So if we're doing that, we are doing our job. Now, I can't wait to dig into the conversation today because we actually have a guest, a very, very special guest. But before we introduce her, let's get ready and introduce our topic. And our topic for today's episode is the magnitude of mental health. This is TARODCAST. Let's get it. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. And this is the TARODCAST podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, SoundCloud, CastBox, Podcast Addict, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. And today's topic is the magnitude of mental health. And I said that this is a very special and near and dear episode to my heart because it's talking about topics that for me have become very, very important in my life. And we actually have a very, very special guest, and I'd like to introduce her. She is the love of my life, the provider of freedom, my partner in crime, seeker of adventure, and my ever-expanding galaxy. But most importantly, my best friend. I'd like to introduce the TARODCAST world to my wife, Angel. Angel, how are you today?
I'm nervous. I don't talk a lot, and I don't know. I'm just gonna go with you.
All right. Well, you know what? We can make that work. We can definitely make that work. So if you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and jump into the conversation topic. So the thing that brings us to this particular conversation is some experiences that we both shared in recent times, just within the last couple of weeks. And in hearing that you wanted to talk more about the things that were going on, it really struck me. I felt that not only for me, but for you, it would be a way that in looking at the things that were occurring, we would be able to give voices to these things. We'd be able to really flesh out and just get to the root of the circumstances and the situations that happen. Yeah. And so as we look at and really dive into these circumstances, what I first want to just talk about for you specifically is your mental health journey. So I want to know, when did you begin to first see signs of change in your mental health?
I feel like I've had my first issue was when I was 10. That was the first time I remember ever feeling any differences with how I was feeling about the world. And I was 10. I tell people that I got my first stress headache when I was 10, and I didn't know it wasn't much then. But when I was 15, that's when my anxiety started becoming a bigger deal. Like everything, even the smallest things, they were so big to me. And even now I'm doing this podcast just with you and me in our house and I'm literally shaking because of it. But yeah, it's I don't know, when life happens, I don't know, some people can deal with it certain ways and other people can't. And that's what happened with me. I was trying to be as strong as I could especially in my younger years, because I was kind of like the strong one. And I think with most people that are dealing with mental illness, they are the strong one.
Yeah.
So, and nobody checks on them. Nobody, they just assume, well, they're strong enough, they can do it. And that was me, and it was when I was really young, and I was just, the way I dealt with it was kind of like to get in the shower and cry and then, come out and I'm like, okay, I'm good. But I don't know. And it was just happening like that for years and years and years. And that's where it started, definitely, like when I was 15, my anxiety part.
To have something that started for you at such a young age, like to be able to realize these things or even just discover these things, and then for those things to evolve as you continue to get older is, I know in and of itself, that's its own journey. And I also know that you have a sister who was very impactful in your life. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about her?
Okay. We had like our relationship was really strong. And we were 17 months apart, and we were best friends. Like, that was the only girlfriend that I had that I felt really confident in. And I don't know, it was a different type of energy that we had together, and a lot of people don't have that with their siblings.
Right.
And we were best friends. We were best friends. And I remember my parents, when we were younger, we would be outside and playing with other kids, and then the other kids would leave. And we were like, where are you going? And then they were like, well, don't be upset because you guys have each other. And that was kind of like the thing to our life, is that we had each other. And it was like that. We went through a lot of stuff together, like a lot of things together. And when she died in 2012, it was like we only have each other. You know what I mean? It's like there was a bond there, especially with us being so similar, in age. And we have our little brother too, but he's a lot younger. And I didn't know what to do. And I didn't realize how much of myself I was holding together specifically for her.
Yeah.
And when she died, it was all, I don't know, it was just, everything was tumbling down, all the guards and the walls that I had put up, to deal with day to day. It was because I knew I had to take care of her.
Yeah.
She had to take care of me, and we were kind of like that. And when she died, I had to question my whole identity over again and who I was without her.
So what I also want to know is, because I know that after her death, just like what you said, you began to even question your own identity. There was a part of you, a huge part of your life, that was suddenly taken away. And I want to know, for you, how did your perception of yourself and your perception of others frame how you saw the world and people?
I mean, I feel like before, it was more like before she died, before that, it was just, I wasn't very emotional. I wasn't, I kind of kept people at arm's length usually. And I was, I had my own issues that I was dealing with, but I was able to like shut it down. And after she died, it was like all my emotions came to the surface. I always thought that I was like not emotional really. And then when she died, everything changed. Everything changed, like how I felt about everything. I didn't trust anyone. I didn't trust anybody's intentions, and it gave me that paranoia when people would try to talk to me and different things like that. Or when I would go to her funeral, when we went to her funeral and all these people were there, and all these people who didn't know her were crying, and it is just people that didn't know her or didn't like her or didn't treat her right. And I was just like, what is this? So I was like, I didn't trust anyone. And especially like with my own feelings, it was, I don't know, no one, not even the closest people. Like I didn't believe that I could trust them with my feelings. So it was, after she died, it was more emotional because I was hurting so bad, but it was just, I couldn't tell anyone. And it was, and I didn't believe that anybody would understand, or they would say, oh, well, you're strong, or, I know that you're hurting, but time heals all wounds. I think that's what everybody says. And it's heartbreaking, because we were just different. We called ourselves like aliens because we were so different. Nobody could ever relate to who we were. Nobody could, and people have relationships with people all the time. And I don't know. It's like I watch other people, like in their sibling relationships, how they talk about their siblings. Yeah. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's my brother. Yeah, that's my sister. And our relationship was like, that is my ride or die. Yeah. We will fight for each other. She held, she broke because somebody was talking shit. And she broke her mirror and held the mirror up to this dude's neck. Ooh. For me. No, we would be fighting. We didn't care. It was different. It was a level of loyalty that I don't, that's not common. You know what I mean? Yeah. So without her, I was just like, who are you? You know what I mean? Who are you? What do you mean? Why are you over here? What are you saying? What are you trying to get from me? Yeah.
And I also know that for a period of time that you, and we've talked about this before, but for a period of time, you also went into like an autopilot mode.
Yes. Yeah, I went, like after, I want to say a few months after she died, I didn't do anything. I was always somebody that was like working and always, just pressing forward and things like that. And I just went into autopilot. And I feel like a lot of people that grieve go through that period of numb. It's not even emotional. It's just, you don't care. Yeah. You don't care. So you're just kind of like, life is, I don't know, you're kind of like on a treadmill or something, and it's just moving you across life. You know what I mean? And I don't know. And that's where I was at for a while, until I met, almost like a couple of months until I met you.
Wow.
So yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It was a lot that I didn't even unpack about how I was feeling about her, because I went from autopilot with somebody else and then meeting you, and then we got into our relationship, and it was very serious. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We trimmed all the fat, jumped straight into the meat, and we were not playing.
Yeah.
So I know that, and I have noticed that you have certain, I like to call them abilities, but it's basically things that you have, from my understanding, been able to figure out about people. And so I want to go a little bit more into detail about your ability to read people. Like, what is that for you? Like, how has these experiences been able to provide you with that ability to read people so well?
I feel like with that's a product of my anxiety, definitely. Because, and anybody else who has anxiety could probably say the same. Because with the way anxiety works, especially mine, it's generalized anxiety, to where every single thing is like, you have anxiety about like the smallest things, like walking outside or driving a car or doing a podcast. You know what I mean? It's like, but yeah, so when you have anxiety, you're always, and when you're really sensitive, like me, and you have anxiety, you're always anticipating what the next person you encounter is going to do. You watch people, you kind of generalize, you say this person and doing this and their behaviors is showing me that I can't trust them. Or I know that, I saw the way that person treated that person, so I know that they're going to be like this. Right. It's really easy for me to, that's why it's easy for me to cut people off. Yeah. Because it's just, you see people and you watch them, and it's kind of like you're always observing, like you're in a constant state of like vigilance, hypervigilance. You know what I'm saying? Like, you pay attention to your surroundings and you're always observing, just so you know how to not get hurt.
That makes sense.
I
mean, that makes sense. And the thing is, I know, since I don't necessarily have that sort of struggle, for me, and when I think about even my early life, that's why I realized that for me, because I didn't have a way of anticipating, or a way of really looking at, or maybe I just didn't choose to, because I was so focused on being so giving to where for me it was a constant rotation of just being hurt and let down, but still feeling like it doesn't matter who this person is on the inside. Yeah. Maybe I have the opportunity to change them, or whatever the case may be, but not actually looking at somebody for who they actually are, but looking through the lens of who I believe they could be. And I feel like that played a role in why it was so hard. I don't know. It's interesting because when I think about stuff like that, it's like, man, you know, if I only read a little bit deeper, if I only looked a little bit harder, you know, but having generalized anxiety, just realizing that that's consistently making you look at everyone and trying to anticipate their next move. I can only imagine that for something like that, it gets tiring after a while.
Yeah, it is. It is tiring.
So one thing that I would also like to talk about, and of course, since we talk about everything, but I want to talk a little bit more about the word pride to you, and how it shaped you and how you felt alongside other people that you encountered with mental illness.
Oh man, see, that's a bad one, because you already know how I feel. You already know how I felt, because it was just, I was so fucking terrible with like putting myself above other people with mental illness. Like, because I was like, well, at least I'm high functioning. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to spend my whole life in a mental hospital or anything like that. It was denial. It was denial, because it was just like, well, no, at least I'm working. At least I can go out. At least I can do things. At least I'm not just, you know, cowering in my room under my bed, you know, scared of everything. Like, it was just, and I would see it and I was like, why are these people? It's like they're living to be victims. You know, that's how I saw it. It's just, and I was just in denial about how deep mine went, because I was like, it's, at least I'm still living life, and I'm happy, and I'm positive, and I'm magical, and I believe in magic. You know what I mean? And it's just like, no, you know, it's just, I believed in that. And now that I realize that from what my psychiatrist said, that's bipolar kind of thinking, like believing that you're greater than everyone, believing that you're greater. It's a symptom of bipolar, which I did not know, but it stopped me from getting a lot of help. A lot of times I felt like I was smarter than the psychiatrist or the therapist. So I was like, what can they do to help me? It was just, I didn't believe in it. I was like, okay, I'll just do my own thing. You know, I'll just get in the bathtub or listen to a good song, or, you know, and that'll be, you know, that seems to get me through, you know? And that was like my undoing. That was the beginning of my undoing for this time around, I think.
So when you say the beginning of your undoing, I want to just go a little bit more into detail about that. But first, before we do, we're going to take our first commercial break. We both got our water bottle sitting here. We're going to stay hydrated. You already know we stay hydrated on TARODCAST, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that undoing and what that meant and how that felt for you. So we're going to go ahead and take our break now. Listeners, make sure you got your water handy, and we'll see you in just a few minutes. This is TARODCAST. We'll be right back. Yo, what's good, everyone? This is your host of TARODCAST, Tarod Rashawn, and I just want to welcome you to the commercial break. Now, you already know what time it is. It's hydration time. Get some high-quality H2O in your system now. Got a few things I'd like to go over. First, to all of our new and returning listeners, thank you so much for your ear and your time. To all of our Patreon supporters, I just want you to know that we are not able to do this without your direct support. So the biggest, dopest TARODCAST thank you goes out to you. If you're listening in and you're thinking about becoming part of the TARODCAST Patreon family, we'd love to have you. You can find us at www.patreon.com/TARODCAST. Now on Patreon, we have 3 tiers of support. a $2 tier, a $3 tier, and lastly, a $6 tier. Each tier comes with its own set of unique perks, so if you find one that fits you, sign up. For us, the main thing is keeping our subscription prices affordable. We know that you work hard for your money, and if you choose to support TARODCAST this way, we truly want to make it worth your time. To find out more about our Patreon and the perks with each tier, visit www.patreon.com/TARODCAST. We've got it all laid out for you. Also, we've got a merchandise store. Pick up some tees, hoodies, leggings, and more at forevercertain.redbubble.com. All proceeds go right back into the TARODCAST podcast and allow us to keep making high quality content for people just like you. For our listeners out there who would like to support us in a non-monetary way, we'd love that too. Share our show with people you know. Also, share us on your social media. And if your favorite TARODCAST streaming service allows you to rate and review our show and you're loving what you're hearing, take some time and leave us a 5-star review. Ratings and reviews are what set us apart from other podcasts and also helps us to recommend our podcast to other listeners we otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to reach. Lastly, if you'd like to reach out to us directly, email us at TARODCAST@CRTN-T.com. That's TARODCAST@CRTN-T.com. All of this information can always be found in our episode notes, so make sure to check there if you forget any of the information we just went over. Once again, thank you all so much, and let's get back to the program. All right, y'all, and we are back from our commercial break. We got hydrated, and we are going to continue with our conversation. Now, Angel, you mentioned something right before the commercial break about your undoing. And so one of the things that I want to go into and have you go into detail about is specifically that word, and also a word that we have come to use when talking about this particular part of your mental health journey, and that word being the darkness. Mm-hmm. And so I know for you've been to some really dark places in your own head. What is that like?
Oh man, it's really hard to explain, I think. I feel like there's different levels of what it is. And I think the first level of it is when you hear your own self-talk, the negative self-talk. You hear everything that anyone who's ever hurt you, you hear everything that they believe about you or what you even perceive, how you perceive yourself secretly. It's like you're in a coffin, and you just hear these whispers outside about how worthless you are and you can't do that, or you're ugly, or, it's just, you can't do that. Don't try that. Don't talk. Stay in bed. It's okay. You don't need to do that. If you go out there, they're going to hate you. They're going to talk shit about you, They don't really love you. It's just, I feel like that's one of the first steps of how it feels for me, when I'm in the darkness. And I don't, that's the first step, because it seems like I could still live like that, but it's harder.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's another step where I get completely numb.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where I was, right before I went to the hospital, or right before I had any suicidal ideals.
Some of the things that I remember during those times is that, whenever you got to that low, that dark place, I remember, just you not really wanting to go anywhere or be around people. You would stay in bed, and I remember you telling me in conversations that you felt like you were just hanging on to pieces of life or pieces of magic or pieces of something just to grab hold of and carry you through the day. It's like each day or seemed like forever.
Yeah.
And you were just finding something to grasp onto just to get you through that particular day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so with those types of feelings that you were battling, like what was that like for you each day?
It was a nightmare. It's just a nightmare. You know, people from the outside, they'll walk in, they'll see me in bed. Maybe I haven't showered for a week. They'll say she's lazy, you know? But it's kind of like when you have sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
And you're trying to scream for help, but your mouth can't move.
Yeah, yeah.
And I never had this experience with sleep paralysis, but some people have. They feel like there's a demon in the room.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
They feel like there's something holding them down. And that's what it is. It's like when I'm in bed like that, I feel like there's nothing I can do to lift up. Like, you don't want to get in the shower. And that's, I had many times where I didn't even want to get in the shower. I couldn't go outside. It was like I was petrified to go outside.
Yeah.
You know, because you would think that I was going to die the most gruesome death if I were to step foot outside. And it's just a nightmare to be living in that. And you know how I am with magic.
Yeah.
And like magic is anything that is beautiful, any piece of art that is created for us to consume. So I love movies, I love music, I love anything like that. And I'll just be hoping, like, please, you know, let me see something that'll spark some magic in me, or even looking at the moon, the full moon, or being outside under the stars and looking at the stars, or being in the bathtub and just daydreaming kind of. It is just like those little things. I'm like, please let me just have a moment like that just so I can, you know, continue to want to live. Because when you're just living in a nightmare and it's just like sleep paralysis all day, why would you want to live?
Yeah.
You know?
So when it comes to, because you mentioned before, your stay in the hospital, as we both know, that was probably one of the toughest times that we've ever experienced, because if anything, that was actually the longest we've ever been apart. And being a resident in a facility specializing in psychiatric care, I want to know what it was like for you, especially when it comes to your mindset before you were admitted, after you were admitted, and then after you were released. So can you talk about that?
See, this is like the most, oh God,
I know.
What I'll do is I'll talk about the night before first.
Okay.
When you decided to take me there. I was in one of my lows. I had been dealing with it for a while. I was in my nursing program and I literally had to stop because of it. I was done. I was tired. My mind was tired of trying to basically grasping at straws for a reason to live. You know, I couldn't. I started like cutting my wrists. You know, I started just cutting. That's not anything that I've ever done.
Yeah.
That night before, when I was watching a movie, and I was trying to be happy watching the movie.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, because the depression had been going on, like major depression, for like a couple months at this point.
Right.
So I remember Sayla was sleeping in the bed with us, and I just pulled you out of the room. And I was crying like hard. I feel like it's one of the hardest I've ever cried. Because I kept on saying to you, I'm done. I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of hurting. I'm tired of hurting. I can't. It's like I can't breathe. I don't know what to do. I just want to be done. I want it to be over. I want it to be over. I can't do this. I just remember saying that. I can't do this. And I was crying to you. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Just help me, please. And it was like, at that point, I was like, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to kill myself. I'm done. Anything's better than what this feeling is. It's just, I'm done with it.
I remember the message that you sent the next day because somehow we were able to sleep. And the message that you sent the next day, and it said, my brain is gone. I'm done. Mm-hmm. And I was at work, and when I got that, I knew I had to go pick up my daughter from school, took her to my parents' house, and afterwards, that's when I knew we have to get you adequate professional assistance, because I know me as one man, I'm not a licensed therapist. Yeah. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not anybody who is designated to provide the type of support necessary for healing in this particular vein. Mm-hmm. You know, being your husband, I know I can only go so far.
Yeah.
And for me, I knew it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. But because I know what you are and what you value and the magic that you want in your life, if I knew I would be making one of the hugest mistakes in my life to just let you wither away. Mm-hmm. And for me, as hard as the decision was, I knew it would be harder not having you here. Mm-hmm. And so that car ride there to the hospital, it was literally one of the most excruciating experiences that I can remember having. Mm-hmm. You know, January 23rd will be a day I always remember. Mm-hmm. But it's a day that somehow there was still hope in me that you would be able to find your light again. Mm-hmm. And with that, I wanna talk about you know, after we, you know, got you there, what were your experiences like with your residency at the psychiatric hospital?
I was scared at first, of course, because I don't know if anybody's seen Girl Interrupted, but that's what I was picturing the whole time. Mm-hmm. And it was just like chaoticness or Shutter Island, yeah. Either one. But yeah, I didn't know what it would be. I didn't know if anybody would care. I didn't know. Or I felt also like a failure for having to go. Mm-hmm. You know, it felt really bad at first. And when I was just laying down to sleep, and I just slept like the whole first 2 days, mm-hmm. and I was just sleeping because I was afraid. You know, I was afraid to go out there because, you know, I didn't know what to expect. There was a lot of different types of people that were there, especially like the neighbor that I had was like spouting out like religious dogma like the whole night. And, you know, I don't know. I didn't know what to expect at first, mm-hmm. you know, and then I saw the psychiatrist there and the therapist there, and I was able to like speak about a lot of things that, you know, I don't really speak to anyone about other than you. Yeah. You know, so I don't know, that part felt good. We had some orderlies that were really nice. And a lot of them said to me, you don't belong here. You know, and I understand what they mean by that, but it's just like they don't know.
Yeah, they don't know what happened.
I put on a real good face, man. Like I put on I can trick. I feel like everybody thinks I'm the most bubbly person. Anybody that meets me that thinks I'm like this bubbly, happy person because I'm always smiling, and I'm like that's a facade. Yeah. Like I'm like seriously, like it's a lot of effort that I put in to not ever be seen as mentally ill. Mm-hmm. Like it's a lot of effort. So when I get home, it's just like you know it.
Yeah, all of it.
But I'm just like out there, I'm just like, hi. Yeah. You know, everything is like that. But, you know, there were some people that were really nice. The therapist specifically was really nice. When I went they would have the group sessions to where we would come together, and they would try to give us ways to basically get through when we would have our lows. She was really understanding. It was really easy to talk to her. You know, other people there, they were nice too. Like everybody, I got a good group that I was with. And everybody was so kind. And you could tell everybody was struggling really bad. Some people were struggling really bad with things that are like schizophrenia bad, you know, or, you know, some people had like neurological, you know, like people that can't control their, if they sleep or not, you know, like a narcoleptic or something. So, you know, it's all types of mental that they care for. Some people on the autism spectrum were there. There were all types of people, and I learned a lot about mental illness being there. You know, I went from, and they would ask you, do you want to hurt yourself today? Or how are you feeling? Or how's your anxiety today? And, you know, somebody checking up on you constantly like that. Yeah. It's necessary. And when you're there, you don't feel like you have to worry about anything else. And especially you made sure that I was like, my brain was free to kind of focus on the treatment.
Yeah, no worries. I didn't want you while you were there. I mean, each phone call each day from you was such a relief because I began to hear it in your voice, the progress with each day. And I knew that while I was home with our daughter, you know, the last thing that I would want is for things to be in disarray or, you know, for you to come back home and to feel like it's the same coffin, you know, that you had felt for so long. And I was just incredibly thankful that we were able to have, you know, support from friends and family that really cared. And if anything, I know that just even in communicating that with you, it gave you some relief, like you said, just to focus and just to be engaged with your program. And so for me, I'm incredibly thankful that such a facility existed that gave you tools and gave you an opportunity to just revisit and re-examine yourself and to come out with light and hope and magic once again. And so in that same spectrum, what was your mindset upon being released, and how has your perception of yourself in life changed after coming out?
I know when I was released, I was very happy. Like I felt like the way I told you was my tank was on like under empty, like running on fumes.
Like the I know my car, it's below E, but not
really.
But
not really.
Is.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you're stuck on the side of the fucking road.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know, I felt good leaving. You know, I felt good leaving, and I don't know, I took everything that I was learning in there, you know, especially because the main thing that I always dealt with and still deal with is the perception of myself that I have. And that's the main thing that I still have to work on. You know, can I just say something about that?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just, we live in the world. We live in this world. We see how people are treated.
Yeah.
We pay attention to what is desired and what is not. You know, we say, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life?
Right.
Oh, we look around at somebody's car. Oh my God, you got a nice car. Or, oh my God, you got your hair done. Oh my God. You know, and we assign value, even though we don't think that we do. We do. Like if somebody has has certain positive, or no, not positive necessarily, just more accepted qualities, we put a higher value on them. Yeah. Because I remember, it just reminded me of 50 Shades of Grey when everybody was talking about that. They're like, if he was poor and he was ugly, this would be weird. Right. But that's because that's the truth about the way that we are. So and honestly, since I was young, it was drilled into my head about other people's perception of you. What are they saying? They're looking at you. Fix your hair because they're looking at you. Speak up.
Right.
You know? So that was my world. is other people's perception. And and people will be like, oh, how do you know their perception of you? Because I'm paying attention to, in this life, what's important.
Right.
What I hate is when people say, oh, don't worry about that. Just be yourself. You're a motherfucking lie. You know what I mean? It's just like everybody knows how people sees certain people.
Right.
You know, everybody knows what that is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's right, but it's there and it's true.
Right.
So a lot of people that have anxiety specifically, I could speak on that. Like, because that's how they view life, is usually, what are they saying? What are they doing? The paranoia that happens when you have to think about everybody else's perception of you based on how well you fit in with conventional standards of any kind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. So with that being said, and also as we begin to wrap up here, what I want to know is for you, what is the difference in being defined by your mental health versus living with it simply as a part of you?
That's a hard one. Because that's what I thought I was doing. I was just living as it being a part of me. And then it consumed me. Yeah. Until that's all that I was. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I feel like a part of it is being open about it. Mm-hmm. Having a group of people that you can talk to. Yeah. If you could afford it, getting like a psychiatrist. Yeah. You know, don't stigmatize it at all to yourself. Yeah. Because that's what I was doing. It wasn't anybody else saying, oh my God, you struggle with mental illness? Ew. Nobody's saying that. I was saying that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's just be honest. Yeah. Just be honest about it, you know? Mm-hmm. Because I feel like sometimes it'll consume you if you lie and you push it back. Yeah. You know, like when people become consumed, I feel like because they've been pushing it back so much, you know? Mm-hmm.
Well, if anything, what I would like to do is for anybody out there who does struggle with mental illness, you owe it to yourself to get the help that you deserve. So with that being said, as we close out our show, there's a lot that can be said truly about mental illness, whatever illness it may be, whatever struggle it may be. There's a lot that can be said, but I know that just even with our conversation, as we've talked about our personal journeys, there's always, or there's a potential to always be a light at the end of the tunnel. And so, Angel, what I want to do is I want to just thank you for being so open and so candid with us today, because this conversation is not an easy one, but at the same time, it's one that deserves to be had. It's one that needs to be had. And so, Angel, I just want to thank you just for being so open with us today and for sharing your story. And I can't wait to have you on podcasts in the future as we talk about many other things.
Oh my God.
But thank you again to all of our listeners. You already know where to find us. You know how to support us. Make sure that you are also being more introspective and vulnerable with yourself. Know who you are. Love who you are. Thank you so much for your time and your ear today, and make every effort to find and keep your peace.